What's that? You good? Ready? Oh, yeah, okay. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. I wanted to take some time, a few minutes, to provide some updates regarding 3 initiatives I spoke about last time I was here. Before I provide those updates, I want to take a moment to share some encouraging news. Nevada administered close to 20% more COVID-19 vaccines than the national average during our last update. Let's keep this up. Vaccinating more people keeps people safe. Nevada was the first state to reinstate indoor masking in areas of substantial and high transmission regardless of vaccination status. We are now seeing a slowing of COVID-19 growth in our state. In fact, Nevada has had the second slowest COVID-19 growth in the nation over the past 2 weeks at 15% compared to the national average of 118%. We know masks are an effective mitigation strategy and remain a critical tool to protect our healthcare system and slow the spread while we work to get more people vaccinated. As you may remember, a little more than a week and a half ago, I spoke about 3 areas the state is working on to help manage this pandemic and get shots in arms. First, I asked the medical advisors to look at vaccination requirements for all students attending in-person classes at our public colleges and universities under the Nevada System of Higher Education, NSHE. The MAT agreed with the unanimous recommendation from the NSHE COVID-19 Task Force to require vaccinations for students. While originally on the agenda for September 3rd, the Board of Health has called an emergency meeting to discuss this topic at the end of this week. To all of the higher ed students out there, if you have not yet done so, I want to encourage those who plan to return to in-person learning to get your COVID-19 vaccination before returning to campus. Additionally, I asked medical advisors for a vaccination recommendation regarding those who work with vulnerable populations. These recommendations will help guide conversations and actions we can take moving forward, and we are currently working with officials and partners to discuss and determine next steps. We will provide updates to explore policy options. The final topic I discussed in my last press conference, and the one I will be discussing in more detail today, was related to how we make large gatherings safer in Nevada. As we all know, Nevada is an incredible location for concerts, sporting events, and so much more. In fact, I would argue we are the best at those venues. That's great for residents and visitors, but can pose challenges during a pandemic. That's why public health officials have been working with event operators and partners to come up with options for hosting safer, large events. The first option is to continue following the current mask requirement that states that all persons in counties with substantial or high community transmission rates are required to wear face coverings while in public indoor spaces, regardless of vaccine status. You have to wear the mask regardless of vaccine status. The second option, which becomes effective with this new directive, number 49, provides a masking exception for large event operators that choose to require proof of vaccination for all attendees. Let me explain. If a large event venue chooses to require vaccination proof for all attendees, those that are fully vaccinated will be allowed to take their masks off. Partially vaccinated attendees may still attend, but they must wear their mask at the event. Additionally, children who are not eligible for vaccination due to their age may attend the event, but must wear a mask. In order to be eligible for this masking exception for fully vaccinated individuals at large indoor events, the following requirements must be met. The venue must have fixed seating capacity of 4,000 people or more. The event must require tickets or registration and be open only to those who have tickets or are registered. The event operator must maintain access control that effectively prevents unticketed or unauthorized persons from attending. Event operators must implement a method of verifying vaccination status that is accurate, effective, and reliable. Staff must be sufficient in number and adequately trained to implement this program. And again, event operators may choose to admit attendees who are only partially vaccinated, but those attendees must continue to wear a mask during the event. Event operators must have a system in place to distinguish attendees who are fully vaccinated from those who are only partially vaccinated, and must enforce the mask requirement for all attendees who are not fully vaccinated during the event. If someone fails to provide proof of COVID-19 vaccination, they must not be admitted. This gives an option for event organizers to choose between requiring masks indoors for all attendees, regardless of vaccination status, or making the choice to only allow vaccinated individuals into their events and letting the fully vaccinated take their masks off. I want to be clear. This is not a requirement to show proof of vaccination to attend a large event. This is not a mandate. It is an optional exception to the general mask requirement if the event operator chooses to require proof of vaccination for all attendees. We're giving our private sector partners the choices and flexibility to lead in this area. And I'm so proud of the many that have already begun leading. We've seen many Nevada event operators and businesses in the last 2 weeks step up and make decisions to increase vaccination rates and thus the safety of their employees and their guests. We know that for these policies to be successful, it takes public sector action, the private sector and the general public to work together and to get it right. My goal with today's new policy choice is to provide the private sector more options that come with the reward for the public, the ability to take off their mask during a concert or game if and only if they are fully vaccinated. And of course, we hope that this helps get more Nevadans vaccinated so that we can get out of this pandemic. That's why state health officials stand ready to work with the event operators to stand up vaccine opportunities at these event sites to give all attendees every chance to get their shot and attend the event. Again, at this time, this directive applies to large ticketed gatherings and venues with fixed seating over 4,000 or more, and locations where venue and event operations can effectively control access to the event to make sure tickets or registration is adequately verified. As has been the case since the start of the pandemic, a private entity or local government can always implement stronger mitigation strategies if they choose. To the smaller venues and businesses out there who are interested in having this option available to them, I want to make sure you know that I share that goal. As we implement this policy for our largest venues, please know we'll be working to expand this option to every venue and business in the state. We'll be reaching out to our chambers of commerce and other partners to make sure we get this right as we work to expand the option. The emergency directive and more guidance will be released later this evening. Thank you for all of you for being here. I want to remind Nevadans that it's easier than ever to get the COVID-19 vaccination. Vaccines are free, they're safe, and they're effective. Visit nvcovidfighter.org to find a clinic near you. I would now be happy to take a few questions.
Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Christine with Channel 3. So I just want to clarify. I know some places are saying if you're vaccinated, you can come to the event, or you have to show proof of a negative test. In those cases, what happens when you have both the groups? Does that mean that the vaccinated individuals can take their masks off, and the non-vaccinated who have the negative test must keep them on? And if that's the case, how do you monitor who's?
No, that isn't what happens here. What this is if the venue chooses that everybody will be vaccinated, everybody in the event, not a negative test, everybody in the event will have initiated their vaccine, then this option would be available to them.
With exception to children who are not eligible to get the vaccine.
They would be required to maintain wearing a mask at all times, but there would be an exception for them, yes.
Okay, anyone under the age of 12?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go Ken at the 18th.
Governor, thanks. For those who might confuse this, if there's a distinction between this and a vaccine passport, please address any differences.
This is an option that we're making available to our businesses. If they choose to go down path A, they can maintain what we have right now, the status quo, which is everybody has to wear a mask at all times inside the venue. If they choose to go down path B, it requires that everybody be vaccinated, at least they have their initial dose, and if they have the initial dose, they have to wear their mask. But if everybody is vaccinated, they can take off their masks.
So not a vaccine passport?
No, not a vaccine passport.
We'll go Dana, and then, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but we'll go Dana first.
Governor, do you really think that a policy like that could be adequately enforced? And given, at the game the other day, there was a mask mandate in place and it was not being enforced at all. How do you possibly enforce something like that? I mean, people in a show setting, a concert setting or something.
Well, I wasn't at the event, but I saw your comments that it wasn't enforced, and I don't know. This would eliminate that enforcement problem. If everybody walking in through the turnstile has to prove that they're vaccinated, we won't have them have to wear masks. That's what's going to eliminate. Then they won't have to have hundreds of ushers walking around saying your mask is slipping, cover your nose, you don't have a mask on. This would give the event operator an option. They can go down one path and have to enforce the rules, or go down path B and have people be able to take their masks off.
And still enforce people who are there who are not vaccinated and have to wear their masks though, right?
There won't be people there that are not vaccinated.
I thought you said that there are people who are not vaccinated could still come but not. But
No.
wear their masks.
If they choose option B, everyone going into the stadium will have to have received at least their first dose.
And there is another option where people who would still would be able to come even if they were not vaccinated, but just wear a mask?
No, there would not be that option. If the venue, for example, a football game, decided they want to pursue option B for public safety reasons and for their own business interests and have everybody vaccinated, and they say that you have to have initiated your vaccine, either your first one, you can get your first one in the parking lot, we're trying to put up vaccination sites that are for them, or you're fully vaccinated. You can do that. If you don't have a vaccine, your first vaccine, and you want to go to the game, you can't go.
Even if you're not fully vaccinated, you could go in and not wear a mask?
Yeah, if you're not fully vaccinated, if you get to the game, for example, and you're not vaccinated, and I say, look, you can go over to that tent and get your first vaccine. And you go over to that tent, you get your first vaccine, and you come back. You can now attend the event with your mask on. But once you've been fully vaccinated, which is 2 weeks after your second dose, then you don't have to wear the mask.
So my question is, how do you police a situation like that when you have a hybrid audience? Some fully vaccinated, not masked, some not fully vaccinated wearing masks?
That will be up to the venue operator. Will have to come up with a plan that they can identify the difference between the two of them. Now, whether that's through a wristband, it's through some other technology, that would be up to them. They'd have to present us with a plan.
Okay, so my original question is, do you think that that kind of a scenario could adequately be enforced?
I do.
Okay.
I do, and I think that it's going to encourage a lot of people to get that vaccine, both the first and the second dose. They're going to say, I want to take my mask off and go to the Raider game, so they're going to go over and get the vaccine, and 2 weeks later, they might do it begrudgingly, they're going to go get their second vaccine. So that's the hope.
Sorry, we'll go, I'm sorry, I don't know your name back here, and then we'll come Ricky.
John Donald from KTNB. Lamping Elementary School in Henderson announced that they're going distance learning for 2 weeks because of COVID exposure. I mean, what level of danger has to exist to push an entire school to do something like that? And what does that mean for all schools in the near future if that kind of thing keeps happening?
That authority was relegated to the school districts in the local areas, so I'm aware of the situation. I just became aware of the situation late this afternoon that they had Lampin Elementary School, so confident that the Southern Valley Health District, working in concert with CCSD, will be able to resolve the situation. Michelle, I don't know if you want to.
Hi all. Thanks, Governor. Thanks for the question. Just to add a little bit more onto that, onto what the Governor said. So within the Department of Health and Human Services, they put out guidance recently for the return of in-person learning that outlines exactly what the criteria would look like for a full quarantine of students at a school, and it mirrors a lot of what is in the CDC recommendations as well.
We'll go Ricky, and then Sean.
MGM today announced that they would require other workforce to be vaccinated. Do you foresee other private businesses doing this, and do you encourage it?
I certainly encourage and thankful to MGM that they're doing it, that they're requiring. Vaccines are the only way out of this. We used to have masks and hand sanitizer and social distancing. Now vaccines are a way out of this pandemic. So if they're requiring that for their employees, I think it's absolutely terrific, and I encourage any employer to look at that option, yes.
We'll go Sean and then Mary.
With this directive, you've mentioned Raider games tonight. Have any large venue operators expressed interest in a plan like this one?
In developing the plan, we worked with our, the venue partners and with our health professionals to come up with a plan. We laid it out for them. They're gonna be made aware of it, just as you're being made aware of it through the directive. And they're gonna have to decide for themselves whether it's one of our colleges or universities, one of our professional teams, or a big concert.
Were any specific operators involved in those conversations?
No, we didn't have this was not developed, this plan, for one operator or one venue. This was operated to get kind of to what the point Dana was making. To be realistic, it's tough when you have, I don't care if it's 20,000 or 65,000, to have ushers or whomever saying, regulating mask wearing. It's a very difficult situation. And those employees are abused significantly at that time. So we came up with an option that would work if the venue operator chooses to pursue it. I don't know what venue operators, if any, are gonna choose to pursue it. I hope that they will, because one, it's gonna really be able to increase our number of vaccines that we give out. And two, I think it'll be a great environment for people.
Thanks, Sean. We'll go Mary and then we'll come over here.
So if, a private venue said, no, we would just like to require everybody to be vaccinated, would that be okay?
If a private venue, as in a small business,
One of these large venues said, we just like everybody to be vaccinated, we don't want them to be able to take off their masks. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
yeah, if a private venue can put any restrictions they want in place. If a restaurant or a store or whomever says, we want every customer coming in here to be vaccinated and wear a mask, they can still do that.
We'll come to the center right here.
Governor Alexander Zapata from Univision, how private entities can face the problem that we're having with a fake vaccines card in the country?
Well, using a fake or a false vaccine card is a crime. We're going to have to work with our local law enforcement and the Attorney General's office to make sure. This wasn't set up to encourage people to try to circumvent the law like kids did when they were 21 or 18 to try to get a fake ID to get into a dance club. This is done to protect public health. And we're trying to accommodate the situation for venues, and hopefully people will take it in the spirit it's intended.
But they have a way to check that with the authorities.
Well, without getting into the details that they're using for the verification process, it's their responsibility to make sure that people are fully vaccinated.
James and then Drew and then we'll come back over.
Thank you, Governor. James Schaefer with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We've heard from small business owners that get very concerned whenever there's an update from your office saying they're concerned that the next update might cost them their livelihoods. Can you speak to the easing, the furthering, or the staying restrictions for small businesses and try to put their minds at ease?
Yeah, we've done everything we possibly can to make, give people as much notice as we possibly can about these things, to make it easier for all businesses, small businesses, large businesses, and individual families to succeed and to be comfortable and at the same time feel safe. That's what's behind this. If you don't want to do this, no small business has to worry about complying with this. If you do want to take the advantage and you've got a venue of 4,000 people or more, you can take advantage of it. And we'd like to expand this to more businesses. But this isn't a mandate. It's not a requirement. It's not rolling anything back. We're trying to open up our economy more and getting more people working. And this policy is directed towards doing just that.
Come over Drew and then back to Tiffany.
Governor, at this point, if, say, a regular business wanted to have a vaccine mandate, and they say they have some way to show proof of that, the people that come in, could they enact this too, or?
Sure. Any small business can enact a vaccine mandate.
Where they don't have to wear,
no.
they don't have to wear a mask?
No, we have a mandate in place that businesses indoors have to wear a mask. This is an exception, and it's being done on a hopefully experimental, successful basis, and we're going to see how this works.
If it's successful, could that maybe lead to something like that happening in smaller businesses?
It would be, I tell you what I'd like to see is have absolutely everybody get vaccinated and everybody get rid of these masks. That would be terrific, and I'd be the first one leading the parade, encouraging that. Yes, there's a possibility that with time we can expand this and to see how it works. It's a little more difficult for for a small business who doesn't have the resources or the wherewithal to do the verification. That's why we're starting at this level.
Come over to Tiffany.
Governor Sisolak, you know, with this, moving toward this option, is there any concern that some large venues might say, you know, we might be able to make more money by just not following this? And then part two of that question, if they decide not to do this, how do you move forward with making sure that people are wearing masks? Because as we've mentioned, we've seen people in full crowds not wearing masks, and I'm assuming not every single person at the event is vaccinated.
Well, it's difficult to enforce any mandate. I think everybody is aware of that. I'm certainly aware of that. We understand that. The large venues that are sporting events or concerts that get people excited and, you know, make it more difficult to enforce these events. I believe in my heart that these businesses want to keep their employees and the general public as safe as possible. Now, I understand that they want to make money. They're in the business of making money. I get that. But they also might realize, to get to your point, that they can sell more tickets. If people know that going there, everybody in that stadium is vaccinated, and they can take their mask off. That might be an incentive to get people to buy a ticket as opposed to an obstacle to buying a ticket, and we're hoping that's the way it works.
We'll go to Orko here, and then we'll probably pull it to close.
Thank you, Governor, for taking my question. Is there a point where, obviously this is an option for those larger venues, is there a point where you'll make this option a mandatory requirement, and is there a perceived threshold for that?
Yeah, no, I don't want to get into what, you know, benchmarks and, you know, tripping points that, you know, we'd go to something different. I am hopeful. This is cutting edge. There's no other venues in the country that are doing this. This is something that we think will work. We're confident it's going to work. I think it's going to keep people safe. I think it is going to get more people wanting to go to an event because they know that when they walk in that arena or that stadium, everybody's vaccinated. Now, will there be the outlier who's trying to use a fake card and trying to circumvent the system? Certainly. Hopefully that's going to be small and far and few between, and they'll be prosecuted for doing so. But the goal is that it'll be a safer event, a safer venue, and if you get to that football game, if you want to go watch the Rebels play football, and you get there and they say that, now, assuming they did implement the policy, and I don't know if they will implement the policy, and the person at the ticket taker says, hey, look, I'm sorry for you to get in, do you have a vaccine? You say no. They're going to say, well, I'm sorry you can't come in. And then they say, but if you go over to that tent and you get your first vaccine, you can come on back, you can come in the game, and you have to wear your mask, but after you're fully vaccinated, you won't have to wear your mask. I feel personally it's going to encourage a lot of people to go over to that tent or that trailer and get the vaccine. And that's what this is about, is getting more people vaccinated.
So if you want to do one more
Sure,
from Jerry in the
I'm good.
back?
Governor, you just said it's about getting more people vaccinated. Is it also about getting more venues to require vaccination?
Well, I'm doing everything we possibly can. I don't know if we're requiring it, but I encourage the private sector, as was brought up previously with MGM. You know, they required that their salaried people and all new hires are vaccinated. I hope that more businesses require their front-end staff and their back of the house and whatnot to be vaccinated. It's the best way to keep everyone safe and to stomp out this virus. And, you know, we're running against the clock here in order to do that. And any idea that somebody has that could get their employees or customers, if they choose to get vaccinated, I think that's great, and I encourage them to do that.
Governor, have any venues already learned to do that, they'd like to do this and plan on doing this?
No, they have not. No, I don't know what, we haven't put out the directive yet. It'll be going out in a couple of hours, and they'll have to decide for themselves whether it's best or not. Okay.
A quick question about timing, image. A few weeks ago, we were talking about the World Cup, Soccer World Cup, and we talked about the folks who weren't masked there. Raiders game was 2 days ago, so this is in response to that?
I don't want to say it's in response to that necessarily, but I was aware of the pictures that folks mentioned that I saw of those events and talked to the operators of those venues, and we exchanged opinions and ideas, and this is what we came up with.
Your opinion was what about? What
My
you saw?
opinion is relying on our health professionals and our scientific information. That I'm a realist. Again, I understand that it's difficult in a venue of 20 or 65,000 people to keep people masked up. I get that. They get excited. Somebody scores a touchdown. They start cheering. I totally understand that. There's a great song playing. They take off their mask, they want to start singing. I get that. I totally understand. We're trying to do everything we can to make sure that they can do that safely. And that's by everybody in that venue being vaccinated. Michelle, if you can add
Yeah.
anything.
No, just to reiterate and a reminder, a week and a half ago when the governor gave his press conference is when we laid out that this is going to be an area that the governor wanted state public health officials to look at. That included, again, large gatherings. So really that was the precipice for beginning to explore. Of course, throughout the pandemic, we are always exploring ways to keep people safe while also striking that balance between protecting public health and also our very fragile economy and the jobs that we've managed to recover through the governor's leadership.
Governor Sisolak, just to follow up, we have been seeing some breakthrough cases, and some people argue that people who are vaccinated can also still test positive. Is it safe to say, hey, we can still take our masks off, not knowing if there's still someone in there who's vaccinated and is positive and may not be showing any symptoms?
There are breakthrough cases. You're absolutely right. Nobody is denying that. But I think it's also clear that the number of breakthrough cases are nowhere near. They're a relatively small portion. I want to emphasize that because they would, if a venue chose to take advantage of this, that does not mean that you can't wear your mask when you go inside of there. If you would feel more comfortable, even though they might be totally, if they say it's a vaccinated venue and everybody got vaccinated, if you as an individual choose to go to that game or that concert and wear your mask, you're free to do so. That's a choice you can make.